My name is Robert Pekin. I'm from Food Connect in Brisbane. We have three companies. One's a community-owned facility, infrastructure facility, owned by 530 of our customers, and it leases food distribution, value-adding space to about 27 businesses, social enterprises mainly. And then we have a not-for-profit company, which is called the Food Connect Foundation, which does a lot of the advocacy and a lot of the heavy thinking about what we'd like to do in the world, our big vision, but how do we actually practically get it on the ground? And then Food Connect is the entity that does all the aggregation of local product, aggregation, marketing and distribution of local produce in Brisbane. And we mainly work with about 142 suppliers, both makers and small farmers. We have a very strong, solid core base of customers who are big believers in what we're about. And our theory of change, or our model, is based on the theory of participating, getting people to participate, not just being passive eaters at home, receiving something, that's home delivered, but actually getting involved in all of the things, all of the options, all the possibilities that are presented to us in the whole of the food system world. Whether they become someone who writes articles, whether they start to lobby government, whether they participate with their money economically, like they did with the shed, like we raised $2.5 million to buy the building from our customers. So it's a very, very different business model. Whilst it's been whilst it's been challenging and really hard work, it's really deep and rich and fulfilling work. Yeah, and we employ about 50 people. So there's about 50 people directly engaged in the business. And it basically come out of my experience as a dairy farmer. I was an aircraft maintenance engineer for 10 years and had a couple of other little businesses, went back to the dairy farm, and so this is the early 90s. I'd left the farm in the late 70s, actually 1979, left the farm, the oldest of 12 kids, went back, and the world had fundamentally changed. That there was some cooperatives still existing, but there was a lot of, economic vitality and, all the things that community towns had back in the late 70s. But when I come back in the early 90s, it was a very, very, very different landscape that I was presented with. Lots of big farms, not many farmers, a lot of farmers doing it really tough. And as deregulation entered the fray and cooperatives have been demutualised and then eventually corporatised, the writing was on the wall that it was going to be tough for any farmer as the supermarkets exerted their influence on the whole of the Australian sort of food retail distribution system. So through that experience, I lost the farm to the drought and a bunch of other things. I resolved, after licking my wounds, that I should do something about it. I should put down a model that was a solution rather than complaining about it. And so Food Connect was the result of me thinking really deeply about if I was a farmer, what sort of business would I like to participate in? So I read everything about cooperatives and how they, failed the Australian farmer. Wrote to a lot of people, just explored a lot of angles and a lot of philosophies, and come up with the Food Connect model, which was sort of loosely based on Schumacher's work around economics as if people mattered. A bit of Steiner, a bit of anthroposophy around threefold businesses and how threefold businesses and a true cost accounting system. So I got right into economics. And some of the stuff I learned around disruption businesses back in the 80s and 90s in America. There was a particularly powerful book called The Starfish and the Spider that I read that really inspired me about how do you have a revolution? How does a revolution take place without, in a very, very distributed way, where it's a leaderless revolution? And Ricardo Semler was one of my, Ricardo, I don't know if you heard of his book, Maverick, and then he wrote the the 7-day weekend. So a lot of influences in those 6 or 7 years between me losing the farm and thinking and basically being this sort of agricultural journeyman in that 6 or 7 years. And I had a market garden in Tasmania, and then a couple of my ex-dairy farmer mates got me back to set up CSA. So it was quite a, it was 6 or 7 years of trialing things and having a go at things. And whilst I was thinking about how could I contextualise, what could I put into the Australian food system that represented a lot of those philosophies. Yeah, started out as a CSA in Tassie, and then Food Connect become a multi-farmer CSA. And no, we're not a co-op. We've sort of it's more based around Steiner's idea, where you have, it's more collective ownership than cooperative. So collective ownership is where the entrepreneur is empowered, but you have people who participate financially in supporting that entrepreneur, rather than a group of people in a co-op who are all meant to be the entrepreneurs in a collective way. So the distinction is, my model focuses on the entrepreneur being allowed to be free, but is economically supported and held to account. And they work in collaboration with lots of other entrepreneurs, rather than a co-op model where you have to be a collective group of entrepreneurs. I don't think that unfolds the full potential of the individual in a way that this model does. And it's very liberating to talk to people, even all the employees here. I see them all as individual entrepreneurs who, sure, they get a wage from Food Connect, but that's just to service the paperwork end of things. Their real role is to, curate an amazing box that a person with cancer is going to be eating on that night, or a young child. So it's a very different model than a cooperative model. So there's 42 revenue streams coming into the three entities. So it's quite complex. But yeah, the main ones are the aggregation, wholesale, and retail. A box, mainly through box system. And then the wholesale, 70% of the wholesale is via buyers clubs. So we actively build buyers clubs. So community groups or friends who get together and buy bulk via off farmers direct, through us, to get affordable food into their families and participate in what we're trying to do. So buyers clubs, buyers groups, like little mini co-ops are really intrinsic to what we do. There's obviously the shed. It has it's a building that leases space to everyone. We have a kitchen, so a lot of value adding happens over there. Lots of events. So we have events facility. So that's where we get to demonstrate to the public, lots of cooking shows and demonstrations on how to do sauerkraut or how to do anything, as well as music. So we have quite a few musicians who rent the backspace and practice here and then do things. We have lots of festivals. So it's sort of trying to bring this neighbourhood, there's 6 or 7 suburbs that surround Food Connect here in Salisbury in Brisbane, bring more of the community in to have, food is sort of like a touch point into celebrating food and celebrating life and celebrating community and celebrating local, and being more directly involved in where your money is spent, but also where your money is invested. We did a big map last year on all the revenue streams. It was a little bit mind-boggling of all the different things that do come into Food Connect, the entire business. But the main thing is aggregation on behalf of all tenants, retail and wholesale. So Food Connect has 3 sort of tenants: collaborating for good, divorcing ourselves from market forces. So that's why we have a true cost accounting method. So we always say to our farmers, don't look at the market, because the market goes up and down, and that is not that's not honouring food as a Food is a right, is a basic human right. It's not something, it's not a commodity. It shouldn't be treated like a commodity, and it shouldn't be up to the vagaries of the market to determine the price. The farmers need to determine the price. And the third thing is we need to decouple it from fossil fuels. We need to internalise some of those externalities and have farms that are free from all of those inputs that, you know, basically not only are costly, but are also detrimental to the environment and to their farm and to the micro, you know, the ecology of their farming system. We'd been leasing here for 12 years and we forked over $1 million. And we sort of thought that that would probably be better off in someone else, you know. We didn't want to do that again. We didn't want to be at the end of another 10 years and going, holy Jesus, you know, we just paid another $1 million to a wealthy white fella. So we said, well, what we've done it a couple of times in the past in a micro scale. Whenever we hit sort of cash flow issues, we send out an email to our customer base saying, hey, can you give us a hand? You know, can you lend us $30,000 and you can draw down it on food after 12 months or something like that. Equity crowdfunding legislation was passed in 2017. We were looking at who was going to be the first to license themselves to do that. And a company from New Zealand called Pledge Me, ran by a social entrepreneur, Anna Gunter, had arrived in Queensland via the Queensland government hot seat. She had 6 months free here, and we were her first client, and we said, we want to do this. We want to raise, you know, between $2 and $4 million. And we embarked upon that. And we had 90 days to do it, and we raised $2.116 million. We've raised another $400,000 or $500,000 since to buy the shed, which was 4 times larger than what we were currently leasing, because we had a bunch of our makers, particularly our makers, were in, you know, far-flung suburbs around Brisbane. We were supplying them with cabbages. They were supplying us with the raw, you know, the finished product, sauerkraut or whatever it was. And so many of them, we got together over a beer one day and we sort of said, geez, look at the rent we're paying, look at the forklift hire, you know, the printers, all of those things. And one of the biggest challenges for a social entrepreneur enterprise or any ethical food business competing against the big majors is price. And we felt like if we could lower our overheads enough, we could compete better and fulfill our mission of paying the farmers a better price, but also having affordability. We didn't want to get ourselves cornered into niche, you know, unaffordable food for the masses. We don't think that that's going to really solve much at all. And organics had sort of cornered itself into that market. Not only had it cornered itself in that aspect, but it was also packaging and sending food all over the world. We wanted to present something that was fundamentally different and about that core tenet of solving that conundrum between paying farmers fairly, but also having food affordably. And we felt like, well, if we can get our careholders or get our customers to buy a facility for us, we promise them 4 to 5% dividend, and we have 1 or 2 forklifts, 1 or 2 printers. You know, imagine the money we're going to save. And so that was basically where the idea come from. And, you know, we're 2.5 years in and the place is full. We should have bought a shed double the size, really. Actually, we're looking at the next door now because it's full and we've got so many people who want to join us here. It's such a, you know, it's such an incredible atmosphere. I mean, we've got a brewery, you know, we've got all the things, you know, we've got a brewery, you know, we've got a mill now, Australia's first, you know, stone mill to grind fresh flour in Brisbane. No one does fresh flour in Brisbane. It's just all the innovation, exciting things that are happening in the shed. They add value to the tenancy here. So it's very exciting. In the early days, I gave away, and we still do, we give away our customers. So we obviously started distributing up to Warwick and Kingaroy and Stanthorpe and other places like that. But I said, any farmer wants to set up a CSA in any of those towns, all those customers are yours. I'll give them to you if you want to do that. Because I realised that we had to build 4 parallel streams to make the movement happen. We had to build capacity amongst farmers to feed their communities. We had to build capacity in young farmers to grow more resilient crops. And we had to build capacity amongst investors to have land set aside so these young farmers could go onto it affordably to be able to, strut their stuff and do their thing. Whilst that's been really challenging from a business point of view, we've basically cannibalised ourselves so many times, and same with all the city cousins and buyers clubs, because a young woman, ex-corporate, has a baby, says, I want to be a city cousin or a buyers club for Food Connect. Oh, I'm going to turn this into a business. You go for it. Here's all the tools. Here's all the business kit. Here's everything you need to know. Here's all our financials, because we see them as building the whole system for everyone. So it's building the whole pie. And with our farmers, we equally say that don't see us as your, be all and end all. You've got to actively go out there and find other opportunities for yourself so that you can build resilience in your own food system. Because we're not guaranteed. This is still a project that we're making up. We're still putting the wings on as we fly. So, go out there and value add on the farm. We're sort of like a conduit for farmers to come through to get confidence to go, wow, this is really interesting. And then they end up leaving us. And then we bring the next raft of farmers through. So even when we have employees, as I was talking before about realising the inner entrepreneur of all our employees, so many of our employees have gone up to set up their own food businesses that are networked with us. So that's the one rule I always say, is that, you can't go out, you can't come into Food Connect, say, geez, I've learned a lot of stuff here, beauty, I'm going to go out and create my own business. You have to stay connected. You have to stay collaborative and networked with the entire system. Otherwise, it's what's the point? You're just perpetuating capital, the model of scarcity. You're perpetuating the model of, I'm going to get as much for myself and bugger the rest of the world. You have to work with us and everyone else who's really doing the hard yards. And so that's one of my fundamental ground rules for anyone who comes into Food Connect. Changes them from, it's quite a shift. We say it takes 90 days to change a habit. So it gives them a box that that's seasonal, it's full of healthy product, and challenges them to move away from going down supermarket aisles with a list, expecting, whatever's going to be on the shelf whatever's on the list is going to be on the shelf, to, and I keep using the word faculties, to realising that they can cook with stuff they haven't known before, to go with the seasons, because that's a real benefit to them. And it's actually more convenient to get a box delivered to their city cousin, where they go and connect with someone in their community who can help and support them with eating out of that box. And then another box comes. So I sort of see it as a bit of like boot camp for, eating seasonally. And it is convenient. Once people get hooked into that system, they go, oh my God, why am I doing, going to a supermarket and spending more money than I like, and sitting in a car park and, all of that and all of that stuff. This is much more fun. Challenging, I admit, at the first part, but much more fun. I get to go on farm tours. I get to do all those sort of things. So it just brings them to it makes them, or it gives them the opportunity to be closer to where their food's coming from and really appreciate that. They get to set the price. They get to, our model is about pulling the produce through. So rather than the farmers growing and then going, oh my God, now I've got to push it through the market, we design with them what they're going to grow, and then we say, beauty, we know what we're going to, so it's basically, they harvest what we want. So it's a fundamentally transformative shift. It's the total end of the spectrum. They get to participate in the price setting, which is an incredibly empowering thing. They get to be acknowledged all the time, because there's a lot of interaction between our eaters and our farmers. And that's incredibly powerful when you've got farmers who feel like they're up against the whole world and the environment and the supermarkets and everything else. So to give them something that's fundamentally different is very empowering. They get to explore different crops, because we don't take standard produce. Like as long as it's fresh and it's nutritious, we don't really care what it looks like. If it's a bent carrot or it's a new product they want to try growing, we will still take it. We've got a whole bunch of tenants in the kitchen over there who will turn that into something or other, whether it be a drink or a product or whatever else it is. So we've got plenty of opportunity for them to explore what they can grow on their farm that's suitable for their farm, and explore, deeper regenerative practices on their farm that fits in with where they want to take their farm. Competition, the word competition, when you look at the root meaning of it, it actually means to strive to help everyone get better. So I sort of see ourselves as whilst we're the lost leader in terms of setting the tone and demonstrating this new model, that it's now become, like subscription buying is now, huge. True cost economies is now, there's 370-page books written on true cost accounting nowadays. Like you've got to sort of see the world in an abundance mindset, because competition, or the way Western thinking sees it, as scarcity mentality. So I sort of go, beauty, another business that's in there, like Coles and Woolies. Every time I see them do an ad on, we're going to go fossil fuel free or net zero or whatever else, beauty. That's us shining lights into dark places where they should have been doing something about it long before. Now they're doing it. Great, good. Yeah. We just sort of ridden we've had a core group of advisors around it who have helped us out with those challenges, whether they be economic, whether they be just pure business structure, operational systems, things like that, IT systems. Our community they've been the one, without a community from the get-go being behind us in operationally, writing farm letters and doing all sorts of things, problem solving with us, we wouldn't be here. So they've been the main, they've been both an eater of the product, but also a core part of going through those challenges in the early days. Well, I just told the eaters one day, I said, there's a whiteboard over there, go and design how we're going to feed the whole of Brisbane. And they just went over to the whiteboard and I said, but we're only working Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We're not going to deliver any other days, because I hate public holidays and I don't want that to interfere. We want to deliver 3 days a week, come rain, hail or shine. So they divided Brisbane into 3 paddocks: the hill paddock, the coast paddock, and the north paddock. And that was it. It's very simple. We order off the farmers on a Thursday, Friday. They deliver on a Monday, Tuesday. We deliver out to customers Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then we repeat it again. It's pretty much that. That's it.